If you're playing Dune for the first time, or if you're just starting out with the advanced rules, and especially if your opponents are experienced players, you might find that some of these factions are a little bit easier to pick up than others. That's not to say that they're better. From what I can understand, this game is pretty well balanced, but I think some of the strategies are just a little bit easier to grok. So here is my ranking of the simplest to most complex factions in Dune. Whether you're using the basic or advanced rules, playing the Emperor is going to be pretty easy because you pretty much never have to worry about money. No matter what your board state is, you should have a steady income, and that's going to allow you to make a few mistakes without it completely ruining you. Very helpful for a first-time player. Now, the Harkonnen can get strapped for cash if you aren't careful, but they start the game with a lot of weight to throw around and the abilities to back it up in combat, or at least to make people think you can back it up. The special rules are few and simple, though you might get a little bogged down with all the cards you have. However, with all the trader cards that you start with, you should be able to luck into a couple easy combat victories, even if your strategy is not the most sound. Like the Emperor, the Spacing Guild is never going to be poor, and that's a huge benefit. On top of that, you've got some cool movement abilities that are helpful if you can remember to use them. You've got an interesting special victory condition where you kind of have to keep everyone at an equal footing. It's doable, it just requires a little bit of skill at manipulation and the patience to play a 10-round game. And the advanced rule that allows you to drop your troops whenever you want to is great. It just requires a bit of finesse to utilize effectively. The Fremen are a little difficult to place. See, if you're just starting out, I think they're one of, if not the hardest to learn. But if you have played a few times and you're moving on to the advanced rules, then they kind of become one of the easiest. So I'm placing them fourth as a bit of a compromise. See, the basic rules all but require you to resist throwing everything you have at your enemies lest you overexert yourself and push yourself out of the running for several rounds. They have a lot of strength, but it's easy to get overconfident and screw yourself up. The advanced rules add a little bit of complexity for you, but largely they just help you survive. And not having to learn how to pay for combat means you can watch other players do it first, so in that sense, it can be a fair bit easier. Oh, my favorite ladies. The Bene Gesserit are cool as cucumbers, but playing them effectively is no easy task. Sure, they get a bit of free deployment, and if you're playing with the advanced rules, they get a nice little allowance. But knowing how and when to use their most potent abilities requires a very subtle Gom Jabbar-tipped hand. The prediction can be especially difficult to work with if you aren't good at keeping your intentions a secret, but when you can pull it off, it's so satisfying. And last up we have Atreides, the only faction that allows you, but really forces you to take notes. And it is a helpful ability, but not always in the most obvious ways. It's good in combat, sure, but I think that manipulating the bidding phase is even more valuable. You can convince players that a card is good or bad before they throw money at it, or you can sell that information in secret. The thing is, if you're new to the game, knowing the value of different cards is not always the most intuitive thing, so the knowledge sometimes just sits there. Their combat abilities are good, but not game-breaking, and the Kwisatz Haderach requires you to lose a hefty amount of troops before you can even start using it. All of this combined does make a powerful package, but putting the pieces together can be a little bit more complicated than it seems. So those are my complexity rankings for the different factions in Dune, but what do you think? Did you play your first game as Atreides and thought it was nothing? Or did you sit on a pile of money as the Emperor and had no idea what to do with it? Let me know what your rankings are in the comments below, and I will see you next time.